Living as Young Believers. This is episode number 4, and today we'll be dealing with mental health. My name is Nicolette.
My name is Charles.
I'm Shanine.
I'm Candace.
I'm Matthew. We'll be talking about mental health once more. So I was driving today and I was really, reflecting on church hurt and how I dealt with my emotions and my feelings when I was church hurt. But to take it even a bit further, I want to know how you guys deal with mental health issues yourselves, whether it's from a church perspective or just in general. How do you guys deal with mental health?
I'll take a stab at it first. I wonder if sometimes we look at mental health initially, before the last 5 years of it coming out, as people with special needs. I think that's what we've restricted to mental health issues in church, but never, or demonic possession, right? Other than that, I never seen how we've confronted it as a church. And to be honest, I'm a little unsure about the topic. This is one of the few topics I'm very unsure about. Sounds very prideful. Please edit that out. I meant to say this is one of the many topics I'm unsure about, mental health, because you really wonder when people get filled with the Spirit of God or ask God to fill them with the Holy Spirit, is there something that we're doing wrong where people with these issues are unable to their mental faculties are unable to come back in check? Or is it now something that's so vast that we've created a culture where people push these issues to the side and they fast and pray things away that the Lord just says, I need you to put at the altar and allow me to address? So we over-spiritualize things that shouldn't be over-spiritualized. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It does. And I think that's another thing that's very important to highlight, that it is a spiritual issue, but it's also a very worldly issue too.
Right.
This isn't something that we could just say, go and pray about it, which is ideal. Like, yes, you want to tell someone to go and pray about it, but also you want to also help someone through it. Because when I'm depressed, and to say, like, when you're depressed, for example, I don't even think it's really realistic to go tell someone to go pray about it. Because when you're in that mindset, you're just thinking about your lows. You don't have the energy, you don't have the mood to go get up and pray, right? None of us have that Job spirit where when everything's taken away from us, we're supposed to just bounce back and say, listen, God said, I'm to make it through this, right? So it's one of those things where we have to be very careful about how we even talk to people when they go through these things. And maybe it's upon us to actually be more vocal about depression or anxiety or whatever you're going through. You should be a bit more vocal. But I feel that our culturally, we sort of throw it under the bus. We throw it away to the side where it's not really being dealt with, right? So again, what is the perfect advice for someone when they're going through a mental health issue?
Definitely don't suffer in silence.
Right.
Because I know that's something that I've done in the past. Just things in general, not even mental health related, I just kind of keep to myself. And then mental health stuff was just all the more because the whole stigma surrounding it.
Right.
So, but it's very self-destructive. So definitely find someone that you're comfortable talking to and who you think will be able to pray with you about it and just say this is what I'm going through. I can't do this alone, because you shouldn't have to. And definitely seek that help.
I want you two to go first, but I just have a big question to ask.
I think along with finding someone to speak to, also seek therapy if you need it, because just faith with works, put works with your faith kind of thing.
Sure.
And you break your leg, you're gonna ask the church to pray for you, but you're still gonna go to the doctor.
Right.
So I feel like the two and two work hand in hand.
I think it just depends on, because from personal experience, I think it just depends on what caused the depression. Because sometimes it's not even the fact that, because you mentioned church hurt at the beginning, sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes it's just you're depressed because you're just going through a lot right now.
Right.
And there's just all these negative things aren't going through your mind. Sometimes the best advice, I would tell someone to pray, but pray in a way where it's okay, God, this is what I'm dealing with right now. And sometimes just talking yourself out of things can really help.
That's right.
Because just like when David had to encourage himself, like you have to
Yeah.
talk yourself out of certain things, because sometimes your mind says a lot of things to you,
That's right.
right? And then there's that too, and then that's when the anxiety comes, and then that's when people become hopeless, and that's when So sometimes it is just being able to talk yourself out of things, but sometimes you can't do that, and then that's when the therapy comes in. That's when people, like other people, being able to have a mentor is very important when you're growing. Having someone to just filter out to, not filter, like drain to, whatever the case may be, having someone to fill you up and stuff like that is very important. So it just depends on the level and what started it, what caused it, stuff like that.
I'm so intrigued to really look at how is it like our culture has created this albatross issue where people are battling with things internally, but they're discouraged from giving the movie, but we're only encouraged to show the start point and the end. So we don't get to see the plot, we don't get to see the various parts of the pitfalls of the protagonist and the reactions with the antagonist. Like we bring you into the testimony after it's fully complete. Is that a part of why we have these mental health issues as a church? Like for me, like I've been like, there's different stuff that I've gone through. So for me, for example, like I had to study for the LSAT and write the LSAT so many times, I had to write it 4 times, and each time you write it, being an A student in university, you're telling yourself, okay, I'm smart enough, I can do this. But each time you write it and you get a low score, you're not just humbled. Like there's a point where you get humbled, and then you get to a point where you're like, am I really doing the right thing right now? And you're spending money, and you're not making an amount of money, and you don't really see the return on your investment, And in those moments of seclusion, the enemy would be like, you know what, Charles, you're wasting your money, you're wasting your time, you should be like this person, you should be like that person. And then you see the people to the left and to the right of you progressing, and you're just at a standstill. And you critically assess yourself internally to the point where the scriptures don't have the power that they used to. Sermons tend to lose their palatability, so they don't taste as real to us. It becomes something where it's like, now I need to eat so much sermons because I'm so low. And just for me to feel something, I have to just get deeper and deeper in something that I don't even fully understand. And I think my breaking point came when I went to youth service at my church, and I was helping out at Bethlehem. And I was just real about my testimony. And I told them I failed. And I brought that church along the 2-year journey of my LSAT with me. When I wrote the LSAT, I got on the waiting list in Ottawa, got on the waiting list at Windsor, I brought them with me. When I didn't get into Dalhousie, they were like, oh, brother, but the church kept praying, And I think what we fail to realize is when we bring people along our testimony, the Bible says in Revelation 11:12 or 12:11, it says they overcame by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. And I think what we fail to realize is when we bring people along with our testimony, it makes the conviction and the realness of God working in their situation more dynamic when they're low. You say David was playing music to Saul, was playing music when Saul was having an angry spirit around him. The reason why that angry spirit was able to be dissuaded is because the music that David was playing was so anointed and connected with God. When you get into the presence of God, what happens? Nothing, there's just peace in his presence. Right? So like you were saying, it's really chasing after that to the highest level and using your gift to do that. For me, because I'm a preacher, I'll preach to myself on the pillow till tears comes to my eyes or in the shower. For some of us here are singers. You sing in that shower like it's nobody's business, right. And you sing yourself out of it, And it's just using, because God never just gave you the gift just to hold on to it and use it in the assembly, but He gave it to you so that, when I get low, come on, so
you can minister to yourself.
Yeah.
You have to get to that point though. Like for a lot of people who are deep in in their depression, it may take a while to get to that level.
So how do you start it off then? How do you start them? How do you pull them? What's the first step you would say?
It's just having a positive positive surrounding. But even that is difficult.
Even that is difficult.
I think with going after it, first of all, you gotta know that God is able to take you through, and we believe that. So you
Right.
gotta accept that within yourself. And I
Right.
find that preaching to yourself, or whatever way you minister, whatever your gift is, I think that's so important. You really gotta use it for yourself, right? We talk about, David playing for Saul, but it really is true. You gotta be able to minister to yourself and take yourself through, and it really is by praying. Yes, we have people around us that we could talk to, but then again, so many things that we get through is because of our own relationship with God.
That's right.
So we gotta know we gotta have a personal relationship with God where it's like, when I'm down in the low, I really know where that closet is, that I can get on my knees and pray and talk to Him. And I guarantee to anyone who's going through something like that, God is going to come through for you. Because we talk about a lot of things, we all have our issues, but the Bible talks about everything. The Bible talks about the spirit of fear. Right? Fear and anxiety, little things like that. Yes, those things come. But the Bible says He has not given us the spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. A sound mind. So you gotta know that your mind is sound and that God is able to take you through. So you gotta really encourage yourself, and you gotta know the Word of God. And when you know these little things, that's what propels you to move a little bit further. Because when you look at the woman with the issue of blood. Right? She tried everything that she had, right? But she made a little press. And it's that little step that you take. So yeah, man, my sores are bleeding right now. Like I don't see a way out. You just gotta take a little press. And when you do that, God is going to see you through. God is going to see you through.
I have a question. Is it, and I want everyone on the panel to answer, when you're in an extremely low place, what are the things you tend to gravitate towards? Like, do you tend to gravitate towards the Word? Do you tend to gravitate towards hearing a song or something, or a gospel song? Or is it you have to work to get there because your immediate reaction is, if it's a breakup, you want to hear, I'm so sick of love songs, or one of those, the heartbreak playlists.
Right.
Just being real, because this affects the mental, right?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering what is your first reaction? And then after you tell me what's your first reaction, when is the breaking point for you to get to that place where it's like, okay, now I can do like what Brother Matthew's saying. I get deeper and I really trust God. Because I think there's an intersection between the two. It's step one, then step two, right? So
I think it's like based on what you try first. Like, you're in a breakup, you listen to all this like slow, lovey-dovey, like sad music, and then you get deeper down into the depression or however you're feeling at the moment, and then you're like, I don't want to feel like that again, so I'm not going to try that method again.
Right.
You're going to try something else. You're going to be like, okay, maybe I'll try to talk to somebody. And sometimes God just wants you to talk to Him.
Right.
I know sometimes when I'm feeling low and I'm like, I'm texting everybody, nobody's replying, so I'm like, I need to talk to God at this moment.
right. How about you, Candace?
For me, I think just because based off of like what I was growing up, I was that person to isolate myself. So now I'm like, okay, whenever I do that, like it just gets worse and worse and worse.
Right.
So I have those people, like those few people that I'm like, okay, I'll text them, I'll be like, keep me in prayer, or can you talk right now? And if they're free to talk, I'll talk to them. And they kind of like, I definitely am that kind of person that needs like that kind of lifting from someone else, to be honest. But yeah, I just have those people like top of my phone, just like ready to call whenever I need to.
I'm like that too. Like, I'll have my select few that I'll go to first, and then if I can't get to them, then I just try and work it out through myself. But I don't know, I just try to go to people first, which is not always good, but
I understand.
I do, depending on what the situation is.
Right. And I think the uniqueness of this selection is like, it shows like some of us are more like, okay, we're gonna take care of it one way, and then others of us are gonna say we're gonna take it another way, and neither way is more valid than the other. It's just unique to our own circumstance and unique to our own personality, right? And I think that's one of the biggest things. I also wonder, like, when I think of like mental health and in church and stuff like that, like, would you feel comfortable going up to your church and saying, I'm battling with depression?
No.
And why?
I say no because a lot of people don't know how to handle certain.
Okay, sorry. Why and how would your church respond?
Oh. But I think because it's a collection of people, it's a collection of people, right? Everyone's different. So when I say that, me personally, would I feel comfortable coming out and saying, look, I'm battling depression? Personally, no. Why?
Or suicide. I feel like let's not beautify it. I feel like we're touching
Go to the
depression.
extreme.
Let's go to the extreme because people are battling with suicide.
Or even suicidal thoughts, right? And that's extreme. I personally wouldn't. I think with how it is, that some people just don't know how to handle certain pieces of information. It can sort of throw off the whole atmosphere of your healing in that moment, right?
But it's the house of God.
But it is a house of God, yes. I agree with
It isn't a hospital.
I agree.
But they're not everyone that
But-
attends the hospital has your best
And then you have to...
interests at heart, to
Sorry,
be very honest.
I don't want to cut you off, Cass, but even that, when
Okay.
there was a... I'm so sorry. But there, we got to look at it. When Jesus was ready to perform a miracle, he said, all those who with unbelief come out, right? So even with that, you got to know your surroundings. You got to know that if I'm coming out with this piece of information right now, that everyone is on the same mindset. And that's why you hear certain times, even during altar calls, some people aren't worshiping, some people are just looking. It's a flaw that comes about. What we look at though is when we bring John off the street, we hold that person to a different, we know that person's gonna come in with something. We almost expect that. Whereas someone who is saved now, how are you really telling me that you're dealing with depression? What do you mean? Right? And that's the same thing that I was saying earlier. It's the same thing that we were talking about earlier. Sometimes we look at it, and that's why there's a huge stigma behind it. Because we look at it, it's like, what do you mean? You're saved. You've been saved for 6-7 years. You're not supposed to be dealing with that. But as John's coming off the street, he's been hurt by the world. He's been hurt by all this. He's been through his issues. So we can now pick him up, right? Whereas sometimes when we bring our own issues in, it's like, you really shouldn't be dealing with that. What do you mean? You're supposed to be talking in tongues. You're supposed to be moving a certain way. So I feel sometimes even with that, that's why we're so sheltered and that's why we want to keep things to ourselves. It's because I'm a Christian. I shouldn't be really even going through this, right?
Because of the pinnacle of like we should be perfect. There's an expectation of perfection.
Right.
Isn't that a problem though?
Yes.
And it's just to be addressed.
Does that not advance the issue? I feel like that advances the issue of depression, anxiety issues. Now we add on Instagram. Now we add on FOMO. Now we add on all these things and we ask ourselves, why is there so many mental health issues today? Force people to become their own superheroes. Ladies, do you have a response to what Matthew and
Just take that out, okay?
I think even with that, and realize there's different ways to go about your healing too, right? Maybe it's not going in front of the church and saying, listen, I'm going through depression. You could talk to someone on the low.
Right,
You could talk to
right,
someone
right.
on the low, right? So it really depends. Someone really may feel comfortable and say, like, listen, I'm going through this issue. And I think we all have at times too. We can say, like, listen, I've had a testimony where I said I was going through something with the flesh, right? With my flesh. Y'all need to help me with this. Because I remember a testimony I once said, I said, listen, sometimes life hits you and you're in a rut. And my pastor came down and he anointed me right then and there. I'm telling you, that problem was gone, right? But that's for one issue. But when it's sometimes a heavier issue, you may not feel as comfortable. So sometimes you may have to go on the low and deal with certain things, right? So there's ways of approaching it as well. But I think what we just established that there is a bit of an issue with how we address certain things. And we should feel comfortable talking to any issue that we go through with our church. If we can't address that certain issue, then that's a problem that really needs to be fixed.
I think it's on us as young believers. I hear your testimony with I have an issue with the flesh. I think the church in the next 5 years to 10 years needs to get to a place where my issue with the flesh is not I'm just having an issue with the flesh. I'm having an issue, and this is not you, but I'm just saying I have an issue with masturbation or I have an issue with fornication.
Right.
Because this real world we need to win is not gonna be won by the lovey-dovey fluff of our struggle. Because if they go out on Instagram and they see people bold with the scars on the post saying, I used to cut myself, and then they're here having TED Talks all around the world, the church should be 10 times further than that. So I mean, so when I say like getting to a place of realism, and we gotta burn this spirit of feeling exposed and all of these things, because when we look at one of the greatest apostles is Paul, and Paul was always talking about, I'm the chief of sinners. I talk about how he was murdering Christians, you know, and he's someone that we follow his writings to the T. So I think there has to be, and I think it's going to happen if we get to that place and we embed it in our children, where the church gets to a place where we can address mental health issues. We're comfortable hearing about it, you know, and we say people from the world. Let me just say this last point, because I don't want to feel too preachy. Think about the Lazarus story. When Jesus called Lazarus and he said, you know, come out, the Bible says that he was wrapped in head to toe in grave clothes. And when he was walking, he wasn't walking quick, but he was answering the call of God and walking at his own speed. The point I'm trying to make is there are people, when they hear the voice of God in the world, they're going to be walking, they're going to have their grave clothes. That means they're still going to have their struggle with them, but they will hear the voice of God and come the best way that they can. And our job as a church is to make sure that we remove the grave clothes through the grace of God and the love of God. So we have to get to the place where I can hear Matthew struggle with depression and say, you know what? I'm going to call me. Pray. I'm going to pray.
I feel like we kind of are slowly getting to that point. Slowly. Because I do see it, and then I can't talk for every church, but I do see it even with my own community, where people are starting to become more informed about, okay, this is mental health. This is an issue now. Okay, this is something that we are dealing with. It's not just a spiritual thing, it's also a human thing, right? This is just what happens. It's just something that happens, and we have to go forth and we have to figure out, okay, how do we deal with it now? And I think that's the stage that we're kind of getting into now. We're enlightened, we know this is here, now how do we deal with it properly? Right? Because I do feel like there are people in the church that you can and should be able to go to. There has to be at least one person at your church that you can, like, okay, you know, Brother Matthew, like, I really need someone to talk to. Like, I really need to get this off my chest. There has to be at least one, right? So I don't think we can't get to the stage where it's more, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. I don't think we can, I don't think we can't get to that stage, but it is going to take a while. Right. Because personally, I know for a fact that, and I'm not saying my church is a bad place, I'm just saying I just don't feel comfortable standing up and be like, church, I'm depressed. Because not everybody, just like what you said, not everybody will be able to take it the right way. And I think not only is it because people will think you're a child of God, but maybe because most of us are like born in church and like our families are known. And then people have that stigma of our family. They're like, but you have such a great grandmother, you have such a great this, you have such a great that. But they don't know what's happening on the inside, right? And it just becomes harder to open up to people because we just put people on such a big pedestal. So, you know, especially when you're in ministry too, right? And you're leading and you're directing and you're youth leader and you're this and you're that. People expect you to be perfect. Yeah. And people expect you to know and have the answers all the time, but you don't, right? Sometimes our youth leader probably does need someone to talk to. You know what I mean? Sometimes maybe Bishop needs someone to talk to. So I don't know. I don't think we'll never get there, but I think it just takes time.
Do you think it's like a pride or image issue?
I think
that's
it's an image issue.
And it's not only them, like we can't put the onus on them only, because I think sometimes we put spiritual leaders at such a pinnacle where it's like, bruh, you better be like the angels on the level of holiness you're living. You know, I better not even hear you play basketball and say an angry word. You know, you can't even say the blood if I give you a hard foul. You know, so if that's the character and that's the place we're putting our spiritual leaders, then it's like, you know, it creates a misnomer and a misreality. But I wonder, you talked about you wouldn't go up in front of your church and talk about that stuff, and also like you've said, Nicolette, how do we use our spiritual gifts and make it hold hands with our spiritual wisdom and address the signs and the issues that people may have internally as a church, and make sure we get to that place where we have what is necessary to ensure that things like this doesn't happen, where people don't kill themselves, you know? Because listen, we may say that people are killing themselves in our church, like physically, but spiritually?
Yeah.
Think about the last 10 years at your church and the young people, and then now think about it. Has there been a great falling away?
Well, it can't be all mental health issue because people are going to be drawn away. So people can be drawn away. But with that, now, I don't want to take it out of context. I don't want to do that. But with that, what you were just saying, I think the gifting is what's important, because because I think we just acknowledge that we're not all going to come out and say certain things, right? So certain things have to be revealed to certain people so that they then can use their gift to minister to them, right? And sometimes God drops that in your spirit. So Charles, sometimes God may say, yo, you know what? Well, not yo, but he's like, God's like, you know what? I want you to pray for Brother Matthew. You don't know what Brother Matthew is going through, but he's dropping that in your spirit to go and pray for him, right? So sometimes God is going to reveal to you certain things. So you have to make sure that you're open for God to have that communication and pay attention to the signs that were there. Sometimes we don't even pay attention to the signs that were there individually, right? Amongst other people. You know, sometimes you may see someone there like, I don't know, he just doesn't look the same. But you know what? I don't want to bother him because it may not be my place. Sometimes we got to take that step and say, are you okay?
Yeah.
And sometimes we just need to reach out and give that line and cast that line to make sure there's that open communication there. Because all it takes is someone to open up to you, right? Sometimes you can't walk around and assume that everyone who's smiling is happy. Sometimes you really got to ask them, are you all right? And, you know, sometimes they could put on a facade, but sometimes they could be like, you know what, I had a rough week. Can you help me with this? Can you pray me through this? And sometimes that's all it takes. So we got to make sure that we're open, that we could cast out that line and make sure we could draw someone in like that.
And I also feel like sometimes, like for myself, like I don't want to burden other people sometimes. Like I don't want to throw this all on them, like it's too heavy for them, or maybe they don't understand. Like I feel like I hold that back.
Right.
And like certain things I don't say because I'm like, I don't want to bother them, or like they might be dealing with something else that I don't want to. Even though I think that's like a personal issue that I have to overcome.
I feel like a lot of people feel that way, because I've definitely been there. And someone actually had to talk me out of it and say, no, like if you're going through something, you need to tell me, right? Even if that person, then they would tell me, like, even if I'm going through something, come to me and talk to me. Like, you just have to, I don't know, it's just, and for me, it was just because I just don't want to bother you. Like, just like what you're saying, like, I just don't want to burden you with that. Like, just too much. And also, sometimes it's just, maybe it's just too personal, and you don't know how that person's going to take it, you know? So.
A lot of times, too, it's like, you want to be able to talk to people, but like, I know for me, I've had like a lot of transient friends, so it's like they're my friend like for this season of my life, and then we drift for whatever reason, and it's like, oh my gosh, I poured like my heart and soul to them, they're not even my life anymore. So then it's like, okay, well, why am I going to open up to all these people if I maybe like 5 years down the road, I'm like, we're not even talking anymore. So then it's like we tend to like use that excuse to stay in the bubble that we're at, and then it just spirals out of control from there.
I wonder if, like, how do we get, so we use that excuse in the bubble that we're at, we feel like we're putting a burden on people. I wonder, ask ourselves on this panel, I feel like if someone came up to us to say, I'm battling with an issue of depression, wouldn't you be open to praying with them? Wouldn't you be open to speaking to them? So isn't it possible sometimes we don't give people the credit, potentially, that they would actually want to respond in a way where they would want to help us? Because not everybody, like, there has to be some people in church that are like, you know, equipped to handle this, you know? And it's not even like, you don't even have to be a guidance counselor or anything, we're not even saying it like that, or a psychologist, but more so someone that just has a heart for God, you know? So when we have those thoughts, and as viewers have those thoughts, like, keep that in mind, like, seek out those people, you know, because sometimes you give the enemy room to allow you to do yourself a disservice, and then you feel trapped in a place where people are always, the key is right there. People have the key and they're like, yo, God's given me the key because I've been through this situation already. You just have to ask for help, and the Lord would have sent it and receive it, you know? But, yeah.
I think it also comes with consistency. Like,
100%.
even on the outward looking in, right? And you mentioned, you know, just going to someone and saying, are you okay? Like, just, and even for myself, I'm trying to be more, because as a youth leader, I'm trying to be more like consistent with that, where I would see the youth, I'm like, hey, is everything okay? You guys doing all right? Okay, great. I want to be more like that, so that, I'm not expecting like all youth to pour out to me, but at least be a listening ear, be somebody that people can go to and talk to and say, hey, Sister Shanine, it's just something that I'm dealing with. Because as even whatever position you play at your church, even if you're just a member, you are looked up to by the younger ones, right? So just being consistent, like always being, if you can't always be present, at least be like a listening ear, and always say, hey, you know, I'm here for you, I'm praying for you guys, stuff like that. It's very encouraging, and people like to hear attitude. So.
Right. Well, you know, this has been, go ahead.
Lord God, we thank you for your love, we thank you for your grace, and we thank you for your mercy, dear God. We thank you for allowing us to take this recording and truly help someone with their issues that they may go through. God, we don't know everything, but you are a God that knows everything, dear God. So we pray now that you help those who are battling with their issues, dear God, to know that you are able to help them through those issues, dear God. Help them to press towards your mark, dear God. Help them to open up their mind. That you reveal to them, dear God, that you are able to keep them and preserve them through everything that they may go through, dear God. Yes, we go through our lows, and yes, we go through our highs, dear God, but you are the most and main consistent in our life. We thank you one more time, and whoever has an issue, help them to find someone, dear God, that can help them through it, dear God. And we pray now that you strengthen them, keep us all, dear God, as we continue to look and search towards your mark. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. This is LAYB, and I look forward to see you next episode.
LAYB.
LAYB.
Living life as young believers.